Hey guys, so I wanted to touch base with you on the hearing that's coming up on Tuesday the 10th and on some things that tie into what I've already talked about for all this time, that's in the writ, all the different law, but there are a few new things that could be used for strategical purposes, depending on what goes on. And I just want to kind of touch on what may or may not go on and what those things are, because they're very interesting. Every time you do research, you find something else. You think there can't be anything else to find, can there? But yes, there can. So it's really interesting. I'll share that with you. And then I want to give a shout out to Goat Hiss, and also to another activist. But first, Goat Hiss. Today I was, just going to get started on making these notes and then make a little content for you guys. And I see in my email, an email from her where she found something that I wish I could talk about. And once I know how many people know or that they know, then I would go ahead and say in full what I'm talking about. But I don't want to tip Goatis and Marina off if they haven't seen this. So this information is really interesting, and it caused me to immediately write to the lead investigator in the Netherlands and let them know what I now know and ask them a couple questions, because mainly it shows you some things about their inaction, but it's very interesting and it's important, and I'll be glad when I can fully say what I'm talking about. But if they don't know, it's probably better to leave it that way for now. But thank you so much to Goat Hiss and to people like herself who are doing all of this behind the scenes type of activism, which is another thing I'll touch on in a minute. But that being said, also this week in my community posts, I relayed that there was an activist from another country who approached me, and they were an independent journalist, and they know attorneys, and they've reached out to powerful attorneys on my behalf and to organizations. So and I did similar with them, a collusion effort there. So one of the attorneys, he was a person who works for a pretty powerful tech law firm, kind of on par with the one battling me. And he said his exact words were that he was sorry about this horrible situation, but that he can't help me. And he's sorry that he can't, but that he has a conflict of interest with having represented Google in the past. And on top of that, the bandwidth is the phrase he used. He couldn't take it on because it's so, meaning it's a complex litigation that would take a long time. And I'm obviously asking for pro bono help. And a lot of firms couldn't really get entangled with something, I'm not kidding that this could take years, and they know it too, So they, to complete the effort. So they, a lot of people won't be able to take something like that on. But in his case, there's the conflict of interest aspect also. So then you have another person who reached out to the activist and told him that they were interested in it and they wanted to know like what state it's in and what's it about and this and that. And so I wrote a detailed message relaying all of that. And that's been like 1.5 or 2 days ago. So sometimes people take a few days to get back with you, but I'm not thinking that they're showing an extreme interest. So it's likely that they feel similarly. And but at least he was, cordial enough to send a response. But yeah, he also brought up the EFF, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, because of the scams. And that kind of, it let me know that I was on the right trail there with that. But I let him know, they can only take so many cases. You can imagine the number of requests they get. And so I wasn't one that could take, but they did empathize with the case just like he did. And they put it on a database for a more powerful attorney if they should want to pick it up. So yeah, these are the issues. So pretty much it looks like I'm going to be me and me there, but I'll be ready and I'll let you know what some of the things that I've found are. So there's a dog kind of just continuously barking because they're upset with, I think the mailman's out there. So I just have to block that in my brain. So the judge was showing an interest in having me potentially amend the writ. So if he has me amend the writ to include the financial earnings, for example, that the company may have made off of illegal content, that would involve some discovery. So what would happen is either he's going to allow us to go ahead and litigate, and I can argue that point that, well, to do that, we need to be in litigation so I can do discovery, and he'll push it into litigation potentially. Or if that doesn't work, there can be a temporary allowance of discovery during a demurrer period. So we could do that as well. Or an allowance for interrogatories. Now, sometimes the court itself can request that information, but it has to be something that's like publicly available on a public website. And when it's about individual channels, they won't be able to do that way. It has to be done through like an interrogatory, meaning the law firm or the lawyer usually, you know, drafts an interrogatory asking for specific information that is then released to them for the purposes of the case. So I would be doing that. If I don't ever get an attorney, I'll be doing it myself. And I know how to do that. I can do it. But, you know, otherwise, I don't think it's something that would be, because the data that is uploaded to like entities they can use, because they're considered like vetted, checked financial entities. Those types of things only show like large bits of information about all the users of YouTube and stuff like that. It's not broken down channel by channel and content by content, you know, like this video where someone brings up incest, how much money was made by the company off of that kind of thing. That goes on in a court case. And so interrogatories are what you would use there. So that would be on me. So he'll either let me do, you know, some interrogatories right now, or we'll push it right into litigation. That's going to be the strategy there. The other things that matter here are, you know, I never brought the Primal Bell parody channel into the matter because I just felt like that confuses things. I never brought up Gaddis Legends' bots or, you know, stupid accounts that he has into the equation either, because once again, I just thought this is getting into just like, you know, tar baby territory where it's like stuff that you can't prove up easily and it confuses the matter. Let's just stick to the crime and being a third-party witness and find other things to give me standing. But here's the deal, you know, not only have I been threatened by Prussian, but the judge pointed out, well, that's not Gaddis and Marina, though. So the judge particularly asked me, you know, have I ever been threatened by Gaddis and Marina when I brought up Prussian stuff, because he sealed my records because of the stuff with Prussian and because of the nature of these crimes that Gaddis and Marina are wanted for. So that being said, you know, he understands the dangers, but for first party standing, he's looking at whether or not the content creators in question here have done anything like that, because that would obviously matter, or he wouldn't have asked. So I said, no, not that I know of, that they haven't. So what's interesting there, and what I was thinking at the time is, you know, I have been threatened by other parties whose accounts I don't know if they're him or not. So that being said, Diane has now made the legal letter where she brings up, and she's a first, you know, direct witness to his creating all of these other accounts in many instances, not all of them, but a good many of them. And she knows that he does that. And so she's making impersonation of her, criminal harassment of her, and creating these accounts part of her legal complaint letters that she's already filed. That's new evidence that could play into my case, because I too have had some of the same accounts saying things to me. So if they are him, and he has a history of doing this, and that would be something I would need to get interrogatories to find out which ones are him, then that would give me first party standing. So I might ought to bring that up. And even more importantly, and what could help me, and I always knew maybe it could in some way, but the 20 false defamation complaints filed against my channel where the content was hidden in the Netherlands. I think the judge is going to know why they wanted that hidden in the Netherlands. I had another false complaint that got something hidden in Germany. So Germany is where the warrant comes from. So we know why they're fixated on those two places. And these were lies. I didn't defame anyone. So yeah, and the company sided with them. So why would that matter? Well, the company's based out of California, and there's something called anti-SLAPP laws, SLAPP. And it has to do with stepping on my First Amendment rights and siding against my ability to disseminate information and doing that discriminatorily. So they did that. The company did that. And Gaddis and Marina are part of doing that. So one thing I've wrestled with is, you know, if this were dismissed with prejudice, I could bring a new case against Gaddis and Marina. I touched on this in my last live stream. I could bring it as a Jane Doe, and I could bring it for those defamation complaints for a nominal damages of $1, and then bring up the threatening nature of things and some of their sock puppets and all that. You could do that. Or I could tie it into this case, because they could frown on trying to bring a whole new case that way. So I can touch on this stuff in court and make it clear to the judge that there's been activism done by myself, and the company has tried to shut me down while giving them, the benefit of the doubt when they've done all this horrible stuff. Here they write to them complaining about Diane's videos and mine and other people's, and they take them down, but they leave them on the platform. So it's pretty obvious they are actually siding with the criminals, the wanted fugitives, that they have seen the warrant, and this is what they choose to do. So they're violating Cali's anti-SLAPP laws. That would give me first party standing. I would have to, though, maybe amend the writ and add it. So we got to figure out how to do that. So I'm still kind of in the throes of framing this up so that I can know kind of how to present it. And it all depends on what the judge does. The judge could go in there right away saying that we're going to litigate, and that he wants the writ amended. And I still might bring some of this up, but the judge could go in there saying that he's prepared to go ahead and dismiss with prejudice, and he might give me an opportunity to say some things, and that's when I would bring it up. So we'll just have to see what happens, and I can't know till I know, but I'll just be prepared for various scenarios. And so special thanks to that activist who doesn't want to be mentioned by name or anything like that. They have done a lot of work on trying to get attention on this, to try to get a litigator to help, or an entity to help. And so that's wonderful, and I appreciate it so much. And Goat Hiss for her vigilance and behind the scenes activism. She's really smart too, and she comes up with interesting things. So thanks to her as well. And thanks to everyone for their support and supporting Diane and her son. And made me think about something that's just kind of corny, but like there's, if you told me a few years ago that I would like electronic music, I would think you were crazy, because I really kind of don't like stuff like that. But I've gotten really into synthwave, and there's this song by The Midnight called Shadows. And I was listening to it yesterday while I was looking up some of this stuff. And it was making me think, like in the shadows, you have a lot of stuff going on. You have people like Ilias and Angelina stalking Diane and her son. And you have people like Kathy and Jazz and Goatis and Marina and all these, rotten people doing their dirty deeds. But you also have myself and Goat Hiss and the indie journalist activist and all the other content creators and people, and people just signing the petition. People like ourselves are working in the shadows too. So there's different kinds of things lurking, and the light eventually gets on all of them, and they don't stay in the shadows. So we're getting closer to finding these bastards, and we will find them. Everybody take care. Thank you. And I'll update you after the hearing. Bye-bye.